What are you doing? I'm just gonna hit record because I don't know what
Hear
I'm
me out?
doing. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great.
I don't know what I'm doing here, by the way. This is an
Cool.
experiment.
Love it. Love it.
Uh,
Your beard's looking amazing.
Thanks, man. This mustache is getting crazy. All right, you got a sweet ass beard and mustache and everything. What do you got going on? You got like you trim it up? What do
Yeah,
you
yeah, I trim it at times, but I mean, honestly, right now it's totally unruly and probably disgusting. Um,
I mean, right now, so I've never had, I have like a bunch of, like I was on some dude's podcast that gave here, now he gets a promotion to the, however many people
nice.
will see this. And I have this, oh, hold on, beard oil, and I have this brush. I have this other cool one that isn't in this room. But so I'm told you're supposed to like train it so that like it'll go over to the side more or something. Because right now the main thing is eating. People are
Yeah.
people are worried about like does it itch and all that. No, I think it's wonderful. Like this is the only. I know you have a lady in your life that you live
Mm-hmm.
with, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I'm just here petting myself in a quarantine. So this is like the most kind of like physical contact I get to feel, um, and so and I'm like really I'm committed to letting it all go. I my
Yeah.
my plan is my plan is to let it not touch it. I did start trimming my nose hair because all right, enough is enough. Um, but if I actually trimmed here, if I did this, I think it'd look pretty good. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that
Thoughts, opinions?
sure. Yeah. I think, you
I'm
know,
I'm just getting used to things. Right now, like if I'm with other people, which is mostly just my parents, but I want like if I'm eating and someone else is around, I usually want to like excuse myself and go to another room because it's not
it's
the
gonna be
prettiest
messy.
thing in the world. Um, so we've talked on the phone before about a couple things. You've been experimenting with a lot of different yeah, as you know, like I was never a big person on social media and whatnot for
Hmm.
the longest, at least like the last 2.5 years. Although
Yeah.
you followed me and always retweeted all of my things, the once in a while I'd post about a my doc coming out or something like that.
Hmm.
Um, so anyway, I'm trying to figure out this new world of like connecting with fans and and it seems like you do a good job. And I'm thinking about so here's the gist of it. I've been thinking, wouldn't it be fun if I just like randomly picked a random Patreon subscriber like once a week, once a month or something like that and just had a chat with them like this, just like over
Hmm.
Zoom. And if they want it to be out, fine. If they don't want to, that's fine as well. But
Yeah.
like, we get to shoot the shit for an hour or whatever because it solves a lot of issues. I'm new to social. I don't have that big of a following on like Instagram or whatever. I don't know what it's like for people that have like a real following, but like I didn't even know that there was direct messages. Like I had never checked a direct message until like February when quarantine happened. And so like I'm sure I lost a bunch of people that were like people like had interview requests and stuff like that sent. Anyhow, do you manage like do you actually look at the
I wouldn't call it managing. Yeah, it's always just an attempt, It's like for me, and I would say especially over the last few months, it's just been like I just do whatever I can. I mean, it's like if I see it as a thing that I absolutely have to do every day, I think I would lose my shit because there's just too much other stuff going on that I have to. put energy into that, half the time I just get like analysis paralysis, and I'm like, I don't want to just send a quick back, like, cool to some like big paragraph or whatever.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, I'll get back to that. And then I fucking forget.
It's just, I mean, it's just like uh Sisyphean,
Yes.
Zach Sherwin.
Yes.
Have you ever seen his Wolverine video,
I don't think so. I don't know.
comparing the Sisyphean effort of keeping up with your emails to trying to circumcise Wolverine. And it's a fun rap. Um,
That
but
sounds perfect.
um, you know what? This is like going fine enough. Why don't you introduce yourself
Okay.
to folks just so they know a
Sure.
little context of who you are and
Sure.
why you're the person that I want to talk to about this stuff.
Sure. My name's Colin. I am an artist and a musician, and I play in a band called Circa Survive. I make music on my own. I make paintings and basically just do a whole bunch of things that fall under the category of self-employed artsy type.
Yeah,
uh,
and also you're like a really sweetheart. You're very good at supporting other artists and other like communicators and things and what they do. Like you flew out to see my documentary when it premiered. I see you
yeah,
like promoting other people's stuff all of the time.
yeah,
Like I feel like such a jerk. It's part of the thing with social, that's part of the game of social media is is that you also like have to play ball. You can't just like make a thing and be like, here's the thing
right.
that I made. And it's not
Well,
that I
you,
don't want to. It's not that I don't want to like promote my artist friends and promote cool things.
yeah,
It's also like the time involved to sort through all of the other stuff
yeah.
to then go and find the cool things that are worthy of promoting and then
Oh, totally, man. The
like
analysis of it all is really overwhelming, and I think at a certain point, I flipped the switch where I was just like, anyone that I think is doing something cool, anyone that I stumble across that I can easily promote, I'm going to try to do that, and I'm going to let go of the worry that maybe someone who I should have promoted sees that I'm promoting someone else, and they're like, "What the fuck? Why aren't you
yeah.
doing that for me?" I had to let go of that and just be like, "All right, from here on out, I'm just going to try to use this more as a way to signal boost and a way to generate good artistic karma, in that anything I love, I want other people to see. So I just hope that maybe that'll come back to me in some form. But I guess the point is that you really can't hope for that. I mean, you can't expect it, because you wind up having your feelings hurt or feeling like, what the fuck, like there's people.
I've retweeted Shane Moss exactly 1,000 times, and he threw me one retweet once. This dick.
No, it's weird. I mean, like once you get to a point where you're just doing it mechanically, like I don't even think about it anymore. I mean, there are times obviously where you know if I have something just bomb, like a print just totally not sell at all, or something where I feel like I'm starting to feel bad for myself and I start to go down that dark tunnel, then I could have a day where I'm just like, fuck everyone, why do I do anything for you? But like mostly
A
I don't
fuck
think about it.
everyone day.
Oh
That's
yeah,
a healthy day.
you gotta have
You
a
should
fuck
mark
everyone
that
day.
on a that should be one day a month. Everyone should have
Yeah,
on their own personal calendar a fuck
yeah,
everyone day. That's
totally.
healthy. I've been saying this mostly to myself, but I've told some other people too. Burn a bridge. Just once in a while, burn a fucking bridge. You know why? Because there's too much attached to maintaining every connection all the time and wanting to please everybody all the time and like and not only that, but it's not serving your true fans. It's
Yeah.
not serving like the people that really like you are the people that like really like. They're not like the passive.
Right.
They're the people that want to like, oh, Colin has a new painting. Shane wants to talk about insects this week.
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck about insects, but all right, I'll
Yeah.
follow them on this journey,
Mm-hmm.
rather than me try to, or you try to put out like, what would the most amount of, I was in my friend Peter McGraw put out this book about like business lessons from the world of comedy, and like comparing it to like what businesses have done that like comics seem to do, is like what might be considered as divisive
Yeah.
from for an artist in any medium to do, is
Sure.
also, he had this idea of like, don't serve warm tea,
Yeah.
serve cold tea or
Or
serve
hot
hot
tea.
tea. If you
Mm-hmm.
try to serve everyone, you're just
Yes.
serving warm tea, and no one wants warm tea.
Yes. And you're also not showing yourself in a real genuine way, I would say. I think
Mm,
that that's been a lesson over the years of just that trying to do anything that's art related in a way that you're trying to shape it to please like the part of the Venn diagram, the overlapping part. It's like you just really can't aim for that. That can't be a target. It's going to create itself based on what you do if you consistently show up genuinely.
yeah.
That's really what you have to do.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. So I'm doing lots just to eliminate email from my life altogether. I had another
Good
trip to the
idea.
psych ward recently, and
Really?
yeah, another manic episode. This one was a pretty good one. I mean, it was fucking crazy, and like the first time was the scariest thing that I ever went to. This was also scary, and then I learned a lot from it. That like every time I've had a manic episode since the first like big one,
Hmm.
I have like PTSD from that. Go
Of
back to
course.
the like fear of going back to a psych, fear of like all these things, having to do meds, having to do like all of these things that stop me from just like following my thoughts and ideas to their like natural conclusions, and like letting
Hmm.
letting it breathe and everything, and like figuring out how to manage it. Anyhow, all of that being said, one of the big things was like the amount of, I was still able to like really successfully run many aspects of my business with like 10 minutes on the phone each
Wow.
day,
Wow.
and like cutting out, and much of what created my manic state was like I was getting back into, there's a lot of other factors, but one contributing factor was social media. It was the very first time as well, and like obsessing and like
Yeah.
getting addicted, and then and like when you get in a manic state, like TV fucks with you a
Oh
lot.
yeah.
Like you think it's talking to you and stuff like that. And so like having, I mean, there's TV in the psych ward, but I chose not to watch it. But not having access to a computer or my cell phone, that's like
Woo.
better than
Wow.
anything,
Yeah.
in terms of mental health.
That's some good medication right there.
And so I have all these things like I had so I started using this program Asana. There's like Trello and like a bunch of other like organizational, like I'm creating a virtual office for my team so that it's not like a bunch of emails getting lost in miscommunication all the time. It's just like things are pinned to the top of a to-do list. I'm
Hmm.
just like, how can I get all of email out of my life? Because not only is it a lot to manage, but stuff gets lost like really easily.
Yeah.
And I feel like social media messages are like just more inbox.
Yeah.
And if you reply to someone, sometimes people are like, cool, thanks for the reply. Other
Yeah.
times people are like, I have 20 follow-up questions, and if you don't answer all of them, I hate you.
Yeah.
And, and it's like, and it's not even that I blame them. Like, before I was whatever fucking D-level celebrity that I like, we like, status fucks with our heads so
Totally.
much.
Oh yeah.
And so, like, people don't realize, like, sometimes me not responding is the best help I can offer you.
Yeah.
and 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 then other time, because I have such a big psychedelic following, people are emailing me with, like, mental health advice. Should I do DMT? Where can I get ayahuasca in my area? I'm like, no, these are all things that I am not comfortable. I am not going to first off, go on the fucking dark web, okay? If you want to know where to get drugs, go on the dark web. I'm not going to hook you up with my fucking inn in Louisville, Kentucky, because you're a stranger that wrote me on Instagram. And fuck, I'm sorry if you're having your own mental health issue right now. I also am skeptical of therapists and psychiatrists, but I'm more skeptical of reaching out to your favorite fucking comedian for mental health advice. Like, like,
Yeah. I
and
I started having a similar problem with that, and I started to so I basically created a couple different um like default
auto
things.
replies,
Not
that's what
auto
I'm working on.
replies, but essentially like yeah, I made like a draft that
Yeah.
I can copy and paste and basically say, "Hey, here's some resources that I've put together. I'm not comfortable in doing anything more than this, but here's some. It might point you in the right direction. Here you go." And then, other than that, I basically will, when it comes to mental health stuff, I made a YouTube playlist of some lectures on certain types of therapy that really helped me, and I'm
Mm.
just like, here's a playlist that really helped me. Here's resources that helped me, and I just don't do anything more than that anymore.
Hmm.
But yeah, I
Yeah.
was kind of having to do that same kind of dance for a long time of like I don't feel comfortable giving you any information off the top of my head right now because who knows where it's going to lead you, and then I'm responsible. Like I don't want
Yeah.
that, you know. So
Yeah. I mean, and then also, like, me protecting my time in that way means that I can have better output for everybody involved.
exactly.
And if social media puts me in a fucking psych ward, then I'm no help to you or any or anybody else.
No,
And
totally.
but I love having conversations with people. Actually, people are like, most people in my life are like annoyed that like I don't, I have a hard time. I can't do like a whole text conversation. I can text you, be like, hey, we podcasting, you want to do this, cool, bing bang boom. But a whole conversation, I can't. Like, that drives me out of my mind. And now there's
Yeah.
a miscommunication, and now like and now I'm embarrassed by typos. Like, I can't. Like, I can't. I like my my assistant is mostly paid because she can tolerate spending an hour on the phone with me every day as I just like hash out, like, brainstorm ideas and stuff. And like, I just need someone to be read my emails for me and be like, okay, what was important here, respond to this, dictate this. And so I was like, I would like talking with, like, if someone actually comes to my shows,
Yeah, you can
like,
talk to them.
it's not always the case that, sometimes there's like, I've had some really awesome conversations with fans, but then also a lot of times there's like other people waiting in a line and blah blah blah. But I know, especially since I've been doing like the podcast and like stand up science and all this, it's like it's people that are somewhat like minded, that are
Mhm.
interested in similar things.
Yeah.
And so, like, I know just from hanging out after shows, like having a beer with like a handful of people that I'm like really connecting with after a show or whatever, like, that's the sort of communication that I can handle. And I think it would be like cool for people to, like, other people to like hear that. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's taking a chance of like someone might be a little awkward, but I'm fucking awkward, you
Yeah.
know. But like the pe- the people that, for the most part, the people that come out to like any of my psychedelic stuff or my stand-up science stuff, are like such intelligent, like interesting people. And I'm like, I don't know. It just seems like a cool idea. Um,
Totally, man. I I do so I have about 10 or so people on my upper tiers that we do a monthly video chat, just
oh, with
one on
all
one.
10 of them?
Just one on one. I haven't.
Okay.
I do a one on one with about 10 people. And they're they're great. I mean, it's been cool. I've had my Patreon now for like maybe 4 months, I want to say 5 months. And it's just interesting how like the people that most of the people that do these calls have stuck around too. So we've like started our relationship like pre-COVID and then have gone through this whole thing together. So
Yeah.
checking in every month and having this in-depth conversation, I know what's going on in their lives. I know, the stuff that's going on with them, and they know what's going on with me. It really has felt like, making new friends, and also feeling like there are things that they have questions about that I can answer in a way more in-depth way and a way
Yeah.
more like helpful way. And it's great. It's been actually pretty fulfilling. I've loved it.
I mean, I'm working on an Instagram post right now that's basically, hey guys, on Friday I'm having an etymologist on to talk about murder wasps, because now that, for that 1 week that people cared about that, those guys got like slammed by the media, and now they're
Uh-huh.
free again. Now that people have moved on to other things,
Yeah.
and so like, and then here's like some cool insect things. Here's this cool book. Here's this like, here's a fun thing about dung beetles. Blah blah blah. Like for one, like I've spent 2 hours putting together this stupid Instagram post that I just summed up for you in that 15 seconds that we just spent. That's there. That's all you need to know. Looking for
Yeah.
questions, send them.
Yeah.
And instead, like, trying to like, and that's the way I feel when I'm writing someone back through an email and everything, and I want to proofread and get it just right. It's just I like this, the way
Yeah.
that humans were meant to communicate, except via, not via remote, but face to face ish, and like a normal talking social thing. And the
I feel
if
you.
I'm gonna spend time writing, I want to spend time like writing a book and like writing jokes and shit.
Exactly. Yeah.
So this is like my new idea of like all of the spaghetti that I've been like throwing against the wall. Have you had have you been like, in trying to navigate the new normal, and now there's a newer normal,
Yes.
um have you been experimenting a lot? Have you been being like, here's like a couple of ideas, I'm going to dump a bunch of time into these? How have you approached this? I mean, other than the financial side of things, this has been like one of like the coolest, most exciting times in my career. Is it like frustrating that things aren't getting the traction or whatever that maybe I'd like them to? Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that's like, even if like my like comedy little web series that there's only like 100 views an episode or whatever, even if it was 1 million views, and like I'd be sitting a little better right now,
Right.
sure, but
Right.
like I would still be like, but how do we get 10 million,
Exactly.
so it's like
Yeah.
I'm pretty pumped about that. I've been able to like explore some new things and put out some
Yeah.
quality stuff. And I don't know, hey, how have you been navigating?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely been playing around with some new modalities of art, and especially with, so when I launched my Patreon, it was like I was going into a touring period with my band, and it was like I was turning this corner where all of a sudden I wasn't gonna have to like hustle super hard with my art shit anymore. I wasn't gonna have to like sling prints anymore or be like, hey guys, please buy this thing. It was gonna be like my Patreon, and then I'm just on tour. And it's like, fuck yeah, like this is gonna be great, you
Yeah,
know?
man, that was the first time in my entire life I was like, I have a fairly stable, fairly predictable income. I'm
Yes.
not worried if I'm going to have work in 6 months.
Yeah.
I absolutely am. I
Yes.
just need to like do a little bit of the legwork of like confirming the thing and the date and making some adjustments. But
Yeah.
I'm no longer beholden to any like gatekeepers or anything like that. This probably isn't going to be like the jackpot lottery ticket that like I'm set for life retirement that like a lot of the entertainment industry is like chasing. Like,
Yeah.
what if I get a sitcom, or but it was just like nice, stable, fairly predictable growth.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see. I kept on saying to my assistant and other people, that I was like touring with and working with and everything. I was like, like things are just going upward right now, and this seems really stable. And so like we're building, we're gonna keep investing. Just like remember, black swans.
Yeah.
Like this. Are you familiar with the term black swans?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
so just I mean like just remember, they happen. The
Mm-hmm.
like the
Mm-hmm.
unknown is out there. Like I can't. Uh, uh, I feel stable. I know that you might be making like a stable income off of my stable income right now. I
Right.
think that we might be able to keep that going. Things
Yeah.
look pretty good.
Yeah.
I who knows? I've had the rug pulled out from under me a number of times, and then the whole world, whoosh,
Yeah, man.
amazing. It's
I
kind of
know.
like for my personal level, if I forget about all the horrors of everyone else is going through, it's like kind of like a beautiful, tragic sort of like,
Yeah.
wow, ooh, oh,
Yeah.
that hurts.
Yeah. There's like definitely some it's extreme novelty, and it's just like it's one of those things where you feel almost like a perverse sense of excitement about the fact that you have no fucking clue what is going to
Yeah.
happen at this point. Any day, every day is like this new, and I would say exciting if it wasn't so horrifying, but like this you know, there is excitement in it though, because even from the perspective of, like social justice, for instance, it's like
Hmm.
we're entering a time where truly there is like new things being built right now and things being torn down, both literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
And I think that is exciting. Granted, there is obviously a degree of violence that has to accompany that. And I think any great social change, no
Not to
matter what it
mention
is, whether it's social
transmission of a
justice or
of
just
a
if
pretty
we're just
scary
talking about
virus.
systems, it, it's violent. Growth in
Yeah.
general, human beings growing is a violent process, even though often it's a slow process that we've sort of normalized. But the whole growing pains thing, that's a
Yeah.
real thing.
Yeah. Um Hold on a second.
You got it.
My internet connection just had some stability issues. Was it all good on your end? I
Yeah, you got
okay.
closer for a second out of
Okay.
nowhere. I was like, whoa.
Ah um yeah, yeah. I mean, I definitely you know numbers are uh, the COVID numbers are definitely going to be spiking for a variety of reasons.
Yes.
Any gatherings of any reason are going to make things spike, and
Yeah.
you know, and it's that's not for like um, um, people that are uh, you know, these long-standing systems that discriminate against minorities and stuff are, you know, it's a life and death situation for people that have
Yes.
unequal housing and healthcare and everything else. So, you know, virus is going to take a back seat in certain regards, and you know, there's a number of other considerations, but wow, I think this thing is gonna this is this thing's gonna be spiking up quite a bit again, and I don't so there's that whole consideration too, and then yeah, the mental side of I mean, this is I've been so excited for a number of reasons. I mean, the a similar thing is like, hey, maybe we are going to use this time to care more about environmental issues. And meanwhile, every environmental regulation that's been built over the last several decades has been stripped away. And
Yeah.
like the general public might be, you know, might be becoming more mindful, and hopefully that will pay off in the long run. But God, I just don't know. I go back and forth with the optimism and pessimism
Oh yeah.
of it all, and election stuff coming up and everything
Yeah.
else. I mean, it's surprising to be like you know, it's funny when these things happen. We tend to like every new stressor, every new change. I feel like we tell ourselves this story, like no matter what our perspective is, it I've seen it so many times throughout this entire pandemic where people from all sides of political spectrum and age, everything else, also go like, well, now clearly people will see my perspective, and now, now they'll see that,
Uh,
like,
so funny.
not
Yeah.
to I mean, I hate to even I mean, whatever, fuck it's not like it's not like I'm risking alienating anyone by mentioning the Trump the word Trump here, even though people are bored with it or whatever, but I just happened to like, I don't even know what I was looking up, but the list of historical approval ratings,
Yeah.
I took a look at of all the past presidents, and when they dropped, Trump's Trump's disapproval rating is his worst disapproval rating was in fall of 2017. It was his worst approval rating was not like yesterday or like last week or last month. And that shit's crazy to me. And
Yeah.
and so like I can't I just can't get myself too excited about those global, like, people are gonna wake up now. Now they're going to see, because I'm just like, I fucking, you know, you need to have motivation to go forward. Hope is a good way to do that. And
Hmm.
hope can burn your ass too. You
Oh.
know me, I can be a little bit more of a cynical, like skeptical person than yourself.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
but
I get there. I get there just fine too. And I think like, it's this whole scenario for me has been frustrating because, I really I am an optimist, and I'm a peace and love guy, but ultimately it's really hard to maintain a disposition of peace and love when you are surrounded by wagers of war and hate.
yeah, man.
You really I think at a certain point it's it's pushed me more into an active role where I have to be a little more vocal again, and it's okay. I still am always trying to understand my opposite. You know, I don't just try I try not to get into a place where I'm just like, you know, seething with animosity towards people who are different than me, especially, you know, like these people who vote for Trump. It's like I'm trying to understand how they can rationalize this, and I guess at a certain point I recognize that it's not being rationalized. It's really it's confirmation bias, I try to see that.
I was just on a phone call with an old friend yesterday. Like, you know, I'm from rural Wisconsin. I worked in factories. I like have a blue collar upbringing. Like,
Mhm.
I don't need to like anyone who thinks that I don't understand the perspective of like your average Trump supporter. I've been like on the road performing in I've make most of my income in over the last 14 years in the South and in the middle of the United States,
Right.
and having drinks with people afterwards, which
Yeah.
is like you get to hear a lot of people's perspectives over some shots and some beers.
Yep.
And yeah, man, it's like even so this friend of mine is crazy. So I have this friend I was chatting with. He used to be this fucking peace loving hippie dude. Like had this like basically like he hasn't done anything with his life and he's frustrated about it. His mom died like a few years ago, and ever since that time he's been hurt and damaged and like is like
Shit.
trying to like go back in time to the way things used to be, sees everything that's different as like a threat,
There you go.
and is just like you know, all of the sudden super crazy like racist and bigoted and everything, and like what the fuck, like who is this person? And a lot of times I'm like, most of the time I'm like, I can't even indulge this right now. And then sometimes I'm like, no, this is, I got to put on my anthropologist hat right now and try to like
Right.
understand. But it's just the logic of like he was working in a bar that like got burnt down in Minneapolis during the protests and
Yeah.
everything. And it's just like, so that wasn't going to
Help his
it wasn't
perspective.
helping our conversation. and
Yeah.
and I'll just say that, and he's like, and I'm like, so what are you gonna, they're like rebuilding, and it was his first bartending job. He's my
Mhm.
age, and he's like, yeah, I'll get another I'm like, don't get a bartending job, get a job that isn't in the service industry.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, this COVID thing is blown out of proportion. I'm like, it, you can think that if you want. What I'm
Mhm.
telling you
Yeah.
is that like if you say it's mass hysteria, well, mass hysteria still plays into public
Whether or not.
perception, still plays into, are people going to frequent a bar, are people going to go to a restaurant? And you
Go
could
see a
not be in a
show.
worse, if you're looking through the help wanted, I'm a stand-up comedian, you're a musician, you want to
Mhm.
be out there live entertaining
Of course.
if you can. Even if you thought this virus is a hoax, it doesn't mean that butts are going to fill the seats. It
That's
doesn't
right.
mean that it's economically viable to go out there. And
Yep.
that's something that you want to know when looking for your next source of income.
Yeah. There's a
And
reason why our entire tour that got rebooked went from really large guarantees to door deals. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like that's because they're not convinced that people will be confident enough to come to those shows, and rightfully so. I am not confident about that either.
yeah,
And you know, so if you follow the money, and you follow the mindset of behind the money, you can see how whatever, whether your disposition is that this is all fake or whatever or not, it's going to affect
Yeah,
things, it's going to affect you.
yeah, and it's gonna be fucking major, and it's gonna be a long haul
Yeah.
too. And I just I feel like an asshole looking back on it, but I was just like trying to get that through people's heads. Like when
Yeah.
people thought, like in March, when people thought this is just gonna be like a fun snow day, woohoo! We're gonna binge Netflix for 2 weeks and get
Right.
back to normal. I was just like,
Nope.
no, that's not what's going to happen.
No.
Like why am I that? I mean, I can be a little jerky on Twitter or whatever, but anyhow, it's what a tremendous, I mean, all this stuff, it is so interesting,
Yeah.
and it makes us see the world differently. Are there things back to like where some of the stuff from my initial was there anything that, because for me, like one of the most exciting things, not just like global because I really do believe there's still lots of opportunity for one. Social change is the most obvious one, but
Yeah.
infrastructure change, political, like maybe entire fucking political systems
Yes.
changing,
Hmm.
maybe the way we distribute food, like
Hmm.
like who knows? It is exciting
Yeah.
and scary, and
Hmm.
and it could go the total fucking wrong way too.
Yeah.
But what about on just like a career, artistic, personal level? That shit, man, is like, other than I don't have a clue how to make a penny right now. And
Right.
I'm back to being like an open micer again.
Yeah.
But man, I've never been so inspired.
Hmm.
And the blind spots that I've realized that are like, oh shit, it wasn't that actually that sustainable for
Right.
me to be in 3 cities a week every single week in
Right.
a car that like could break down, and then like that's a whole fucking deal that I got to deal with and delay tour and blah blah blah, and
Yeah.
like shit could happen at any time.
Hmm.
And things of like the opportunities of social media where like Instagram, which I always just like, oh, people, like I never looked at it. I'm like, I hear people post pictures of their meals or something. Cool.
Uh-huh.
Like, I'm just not, I don't like taking pictures of myself. I'm not interested. Instagram, I've been like really kind of enjoying doing some stuff with
Yeah.
it here and there. It's
Sure.
exploring a new medium. I've been doing like remote podcast things, doing like stuff with like crowdcast or whatever, and I put that on hold for a bunch of reasons. Recently, a lot of the social stuff going on, I think, is like more important, and it is going to overshadow like, hey,
Totally.
come in here, come, we're gonna talk about the evolution of the thumb today. Like I don't think that um there, but anyway,
Yeah.
regardless, is it's like it's just made me see new ways of doing things. It's made
Definitely.
me like assess how happy was I actually traveling that much. I think I was pretty happy, and
Hmm.
and I wouldn't, and I look forward to getting back to it. But also, maybe I wouldn't mind having a house with like a garden or something one day. I had never even occurred to me, and I know that like as I get older, that shit
Yeah.
will start occurring to me more and more often. Just like
Absolutely.
so much stuff like that. What's been your you said you've been experimenting with some kind of new mediums?
Yeah. I mean, just to go right to what you're talking about, I mean, sort of the long view of a lifestyle that puts you just constantly in like sort of a nomadic mode. I've been feeling that for years now, and even I think when I at the very beginning of my band Circa, like, yeah, when we first got together, that was already in my head because I had been touring for almost 7 years right out of high school in another band. So I had already kind of been thinking, what's the end goal here? And like, how do, like, I'm not going to be, especially starting out in like this, like, really sort of high energy, like punk hardcore band where I'm just like banging my head like crazy and just sort of like the whole thing is frantic energy. It made me think like I'm not going to be doing this when I'm 50. Like I'm
Hmm.
not even sure I can do this when I'm 40. Like what am I going to do? So I've been thinking in that way ever since the band started, and I even started thinking, when we were recording our first record, like
First band meeting, guys. I don't think this shit's sustainable.
exactly.
But all right, I'm up for it. Let's do
Yeah, right out of the gate,
it.
for real. I mean, like as soon as we started, I was already kind of trying to hatch my escape pod and build it. I was like, all right, I'm gonna start doodling while we're on the road and just see if I can learn how to draw and maybe I can sell these things. And so I've always been trying to kind of build up some steam with some side hustles. And so for me now, I had been really excited, like I was saying, like going into this cycle of like, oh, I'm going to tour, make a bunch of money on top of the Patreon, which is laying this foundation of like my mortgage is paid, And so, but I was already thinking in my head, like, I really want to get to the place where if the band goes away, I'll be totally fine. And now that it basically has morphed and shape shifted into, we're like content creators now, we're not really live musicians. um it's given me a pause to really start to think long term in a major way and start to plant seeds that are going to be for a world where maybe I don't ever get to tour again. Like who knows? I mean, I'm optimistic. I think that we will tour again. I mean, we have dates up now, but that was mostly so people could get refunds if they needed them. But you
Mhm.
know, it's really stressful to be in a place where I'm like my main source of income is indefinitely on hold, but it's like that, all those cliches of like crisis brings opportunity, and I
Mhm.
think that's the only way I can look at it. It's like, all right, well, like I was gonna have to do this anyway. At some point, I was gonna have to have another plan. I was gonna
Yeah.
have to have another way because I'm not in the Rolling Stones. Like
Yeah.
I wasn't going to be up there playing when I'm 70, and I've been self-employed basically my whole adult life. So it's not like I have a 401k or some major retirement plan. I have to create that for myself anyway, and this has given me kind of the necessary kick in the ass to, really explore more on my visual art, really explore more on how I can make my podcast and the small community of people that do really support me as an individual outside of that band really find a way to deepen that relationship, to deepen means of like what can I give them that will make this all worthwhile in a very long term way. So yeah, I mean,
I mean, that's what I'm like. So, when I think about what I really value and also how to get money,
right.
there's a lot of like, how the brain works is like, there's a lot of, and I've been thinking about what I advertise on my podcast a little more and like just thinking, there's system one and system two type stuff. There's like that intuitive mind, and then there's that longer, slower, debilitative, the ability to deliberate, which takes a lot longer, takes a lot more cognitive effort. Might need a nap afterwards. We don't have time to sit and have analysis paralysis about every step in life. But
Yeah.
when I look at like what a general like comedy club often does, it's a lot of like system one, like, okay, let's just get them in there, get them distracted, get them
Yeah.
laughing with the like the easiest jokes, offend the fewest number of people,
Uh-huh.
and get overpriced drinks in there, and then like hopefully they've had enough to drink that they'll buy merch from the comic afterwards, so we don't have to pay the comic as much because now it's
Mhm.
on them to sell their whoopee cushions and stuff.
Right.
And and it's all of these like system one choices, and like, and that's such a great way to like get money or get like your cash, the cash in your wallet lives in system one.
Yeah.
If you want to get to that system one money, like get people drunk, get people angry, get people scared, get people emotional,
Yep.
and passionate and everything else. We can also use that to do good in the world and
Of
and
course.
and create positive change. But I was just thinking, I don't think that's my crowd.
Yeah.
Like I think that, I want people that are patient and want to hear a little more insight and be a part of a philosophical conversation, and to know that like for me a show is when I had like my first manic episode, and like the breaking point was actually at the Roger Waters
Right, right.
concert. One of the things that I realized afterwards was like, and it's not that I didn't kind of know this before, but it was just like, oh, that's just a reminder that this is all a show. Like, I thought I was just at a show. I was just at a reminder that all of life is a show, and like this show keeps going. Like I want people to listen to my podcast and then walk down the street, or like in a conversation afterwards say something about like cognitive biases or whatever in their conversations that they learned, that like help enlighten their conversations, that help enlighten the people that they're talking to. And so I actually want people, when I say like, here's a product that I like right now I have like random ads and stuff in the podcast still, but what I really want is like, here's a thing that I like. I want you to like think about this. Is this a good product for you?
Mhm.
And is this like joining my Patreon? Is this like a wise investment for you? Because what I'm looking for is an investment. Like I want to build a network of people. I want like I often said with stand up science that like, because there's always a couple people that would walk out like didn't know like, oh, I got to hear a scientist give a talk. I thought I was just gonna hear
Right.
like a comedian do thing, and I'm also changing the format a bit just because of that. Um but you're like, as a comedian, you're not doing it right if like a couple people don't leave
Right.
every show.
Mhm.
And um and and I just thought that that that's actually like what a great way of building the audience. So anyway, I always had a joke in stand-up science that I was like from the beginning. I'm like, just like, there's a couple of you that just aren't gonna like this. Like I'm looking for better fans more than I am more of them. Of course, in
Yeah.
an ideal world, I want more better fans, but but like I think that there are these new mediums of like, okay, not only can you hear our art or joke or music, whatever, but you can connect. We can like be a community, um, things like that. And especially as someone who didn't like church but always liked the idea of like a social gathering to
Yeah.
go and have like ideas about like the nature of reality and life and whatnot. And so I don't know. That's just like, that's what I've spent the last few months really thinking the most about. Is I see like so many other comics being like, oh, I'll try virtual stand up and see if, hey, can anyone donate like $3, and like, oh, I need to pay rent like this week.
Yeah.
And this whole time I've been like, well, I'm fucked. Best to use this time to set myself up so that after this year that is going to be economically a fucking
Devastating.
nightmare,
Yeah.
I have a better career and better fans, better part of a better community for the next 30 years
Yeah.
of my life. It doesn't matter if I make $200. If I say, hey, did you like this? Venmo me 200. Like, that's gonna help me right now. But like, a lot of that shit's not working anyway. so
Right.
so like, I'm just in such an investment period. So I guess the last, because I want you to plug all of your stuff. I was wondering, just because I'm so new to all of this stuff, and then I'm
Sure.
also like, hey, I got this crowdcast thing. If you follow me on Patreon, then you can have free access. And then like the greatest civil rights movement of our lifetime. I'm like, yeah, that's good. Sorry, I might have overpromised. I didn't see. There was one more thing I didn't see coming, so we're
Yeah.
gonna put that on hold for a great cause. But
Right.
I don't want to like sell people on things that I can't deliver, but I want to be experimental and I want to. So
Yeah.
what sort of things have you been doing? If someone follows you on Patreon, what
Right.
what 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 things do you have on there? If
Hmm.
there's anything that like you learned that you were like, we tried this, that shit didn't work. I would love to know that.
Yeah, sure.
And if there's anything you're super excited about, because I've like dabbled in creating like a forum or so. I love, like, in theory, I love the idea of like even being on Reddit with every episode and being in the conversation, but the practical matter of like, oh, that's another thing that's going to tie me to the computer and slow
Yeah.
down everything else. So I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, I'll give you the rundown for myself. I mean, it's definitely been a learning process, and it's been interesting to, um, launch the band's Patreon a month later with a bunch of experience. Obviously, I was the only one that knew how to even put a Patreon together, so I got tasked with doing that. And then, but the band's fan base compared to mine is like huge, right? And so I've gotten the experience of managing a massive Patreon with basically we have like 2,000 patrons, which is insane.
Mm-hmm.
And it really operates as its own little universe and its own community that has sub communities even within it. Like on our Discord, for the band, there's like music clubs and reading clubs like within that. So it's wild. But yeah, for myself, one thing that I'm still sort of trying to get the knack for, but I think was a cool part is I did start a Discord that went along with the Patreon, which is essentially, like, are you familiar with Discord?
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
I almost, that Asana program I was talking about. I thought about using Discord as a virtual office space
Right.
as
Yeah.
well for everybody. But
Yeah, it can work pretty well. But
but basically, I went on once when Duncan Trussell had his like debut of Midnight Gospel, and like
oh, cool.
got a little bit of of, of a sense, but didn't look into it much outside of that.
Yeah, so I mean, basically, it's just a little private chat with channels that you can make, topics and themed, and there's voice channels, there's video channels. There's a lot you can do there. And I think the best part of mine, because it's a very small community, there's one that we called safe place, and basically just all these people who are my patrons have connected in there, and it's just a place for people to talk about what's stressing them out, what's whatever's going on in their life, people who are losing people who are depressed, or people who are struggling with job scenarios or whatever. Everyone just kind of shares their thing there, and people offer support, and I thought that was really cool. So that's been one really interesting, inspiring thing. I try to go into the I've kind of slacked over the last month, but I was regularly go our kind of having like a group discussion with whoever wanted to jump in there. It was just kind of like a conference call. Uh oh, you
Hmm.
got me still? I
Yeah.
saw the unstable thing. Um, yeah, but so it was
Oh, now I lost you.
well, it's fun. Oh no.
Hold up.
Okay.
What is going on? I think I'm connected to Ethernet. But maybe I should have reset my modem or something.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't know.
I think I
I've
might
got
have
I've
too
got
many.
you good.
Okay. I think I might have too many programs running in my background. I know better than to do that as well. All right. So you were saying.
Yeah. So Discord has been a really interesting experiment. It definitely offers another way to connect people, but it is a lot of participation and you have to sort of be okay with letting it be its own thing, and if it's going to slow down and sort of not be this amazing super hyperactive thing right away, you just have to be okay with that. I think at first I was trying to like nudge it along and constantly be in there and constantly be involved, and I realized like this has to be more for them and less for me,
Hmm.
and if it's going to die out, I have to just let that die out. But it's kind of taken on its own energy, and I'm just trying to figure out how to add to that. But what I will say works really good for me for my Patreon, I do a monthly giveaway, um, where for myself I usually winds up being art related, but I think people really like giveaways. You're not technically allowed to do raffles anymore, so I guess because of gambling laws or something. So I used to just
Really?
yeah, I used to just pull a random patron's name out of this jar that I had, and I would just every time someone joined my Patreon, I'd put their name in this box, and it was kind of exciting and cool. But now I had to switch to something where they basically said the workaround is you develop a criteria for the giveaway. So it can't just be that they pay for your Patreon, because otherwise it's seen as like almost like a lottery ticket or whatever. So I
So
was
I can't be like one listener a month randomly gets to talk with me?
I mean, you can really kind of get crafty about how you do it. But technically they said that I couldn't do a raffle. And I was like, okay. So now I basically had to explain that to my patrons and say, I can't do it the way I did it before, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just randomly, I'm, I'm going to just pick a comment each month, and the person that left that comment is going to be the winner. Um, People didn't give a shit or whatever. They're just like, fine, it's fine. This is the
Hmm.
thing I'm learning the most about Patreon, I think, is that yes, it's important to have cool things in there. Yes, it's important to have something worthwhile to bring someone in. But so many of these people just want to support. They really
Hmm.
don't care if all of these things are delivered on time and delivered in a certain way. Do I still feel immense pressure and insane sort of an analysis paralysis constantly with it? Yes, but yeah. So what I will say beyond the giveaway, which I think is definitely a cool thing to do, which you're kind of working on already with this thing. Uh, I think I need to do more video, and people just love anything that is documenting what you do, like, and really just breaking
I,
down what your
I'm
process is.
I'm that's what I want to do. That's what I've already started doing videos of this of
Yeah,
like here's what's going to be explored for the first time ever. I'm like
yeah,
here's what's going to be explored on an upcoming episode if you have questions or whatever.
Yeah.
and the questions I get on Patreon are so much better than I was gonna like make some tweet about this or where it's like, hey, I have a zebra episode coming up, and like Patreon, like if anyone has any zebra questions, and Patreon supporters being like, what are zebras roles and ecosystems, and then all of the rest of social media is like, ask that asshole why the bankers are painting stripes on horses. and,
It's so true. Like the
and
engagement level is so much higher, like, and just the way the amount of thought and the curiosity level is so much higher. But again, that's, I guess that's sort of the mystery juice that comes along with capitalism, you know, like people if they pay for something, they instantly think it has more value than something that's given away for free, which is crazy and not true, obviously. But we do that all the time in our heads. You know, we're like, you know, I've seen that with music like so much. You know, the fact when music transitioned from this thing that you would get this physical item that you would own, this album, to this nothing, this thing that streams, that's just invisible. Like people see it as free now. They see it
yeah,
as having no value. They see it as they should never have to pay for it.
yeah,
And it's hilarious. But
yeah,
I think that that's part of the Patreon thing. Patreon all of a sudden gives value to this
yeah.
exchange again, and there's
There's
something beautiful about that.
there's this there's I think this is in the book Thinking Fast and Slow, which touches on which is like where the very idea of system 1 and 2 stuff kind of originally
Oh, cool!
came
I got to
from.
read
but
that.
but there's oh, it's very good. Yeah, that's one of the better pop science books of all time. And then they won the Nobel Prize in economics, and they weren't economists, uh,
Wow,
or psychologists.
wow.
And but anyway, there's a thing about there's an anecdote, maybe this is Dan Ariely. Anyway, one of those, doesn't matter, about a locksmith. Locksmith started, and he'd go to like open someone's door. It would take him an hour, and he'd sometimes damage their door, and people would tip him because they saw like how much effort he was putting into this and everything else. And
Yeah,
then skip forward 20 years later to where he can get in anyone's door in 2 seconds without without a single ding on it or anything else. And and not only does he no longer get tips, but people like accuse him of being like a scam artist for like overcharging or whatever, because people don't realize they're
yeah,
paying for like the experience
yeah,
of that 20 years. They're paying
yeah.
for like the quality of the service.
That
And
is such a metaphor for visual art.
yeah,
Like when you when people see a painting or a drawing, they're like, "How long did that take?" And I just want to be like, 10 years. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, or what, however long I've been painting or drawing, you know, it's
yeah,
like it doesn't matter if it took me a half hour or like a whole day. It's like it took me all these years to get to the place where I could make it. Period.
right,
You know,
right. Yeah, that's
hysterical.
and that's, I mean, that's one thing that I've been excited about, is like, why not, I was also kind of dissatisfied with like just tweeting out stream of consciousness stuff, because half of the stuff I was like, I'd look at it the next day and be like, oh, that I might have
Save
had
it
a
for
few too many
Patreon.
drinks. But I was thinking about just like putting some of the things that I'm writing, stuff like that, like pages of like a potential book and stuff, like throwing stuff like that on, making videos of just like, here's why I'm not doing this crowdcast thing, right? Just like stuff like that,
Exactly.
letting people
No,
know like how the sausage is made.
that
Because
is
one,
it.
I love talking about that stuff.
Me
People
too.
are always just like, people are like nervous about asking me about like being a comedian or whatever. And well, I actually like talking shop. I don't like when people are like, tell me a joke. Like that if you do that, like, I don't want to talk to you. Things just got very awkward. But
Yeah.
like, if you have legitimate questions about like what it's like to be a comedian, or how I got started, or what some like the behind the scenes are, or like how I put together a show, or how I write a joke, like
Right.
those, like, I love talking about that sort of stuff.
Totally.
And I and there isn't really like much of a, I guess maybe on YouTube or maybe on Insta. I don't see like a really like viable platform for that, like that form of expression of like the behind the scenes stuff. And Patreon seems like a cool a cool tool for that kind of stuff. And it seems like the kind of stuff that Patreon subscribers are after.
Totally, man. I mean, I recently just started doing these textual like videos. They're like just where I like kind of write a thought or a poem of sorts, and then I make this weird visual, um, painting out of it, sort of. And I will post those on social media, but I post them on Patreon first with a whole bunch of text explaining why I made that.
Yeah.
I don't include that text on the actual post in public, but patrons
Yeah.
actually get this is what inspired this. This is why I made it like this. This is how I did it. And I think just as simple as that, just showing what your process is, that's so much of why those people are there. They want to
Mm-hmm.
understand what it's like to be you, what it's like to like do your work every day. So I finally have caught on to that after like trying all these things to deliver things. It's like, oh, I could literally take a picture of my list of shit to do and explain my mental process of how I'm going to execute that, and that will be more interesting to them than this other bullshit.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that's not a bad idea. Going through my to-do list.
Yeah.
That would, speaking of like the locksmith stuff,
Yeah.
people would be like, especially for, there's still people that are like messaging me like, "Hey, how do I get into stand-up comedy?" Like, right fucking now, you don't. That's how? What the fuck are you talking about?
That's
You
amazing,
tell
dude.
me if you figure that shit out.
Wow.
But
Wow.
yeah, so it would be cool to be like, just so you know, all of the stuff that like when I was a kid, it was like, ooh, you see someone come out from behind the curtain on the late night and tell a
Yeah.
few jokes, and then sit next to David Letterman and tell another couple jokes. Well, that is the end result of a very long process, which is really interesting, but also like,
Totally.
yeah. But well, man, this is awesome. Thanks for
Yeah,
doing
man.
this with me. I'm gonna post this on my Patreon if you're cool with that.
Absolutely.
And I what do you plug all your stuff? What's the best way to for people to find all of the things?
Um, yeah, I mean, however people wanna find me, I mean, you can Google Colin Circa or Colin Frangicetto. Colin Circa is probably easier. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, I'm Colin Circa on Twitter, on Instagram, and on Patreon. It's Colin Cosmic because I do a podcast called The Cosmic Nod, and uh, and that's a big part of my Patreon as well. So, but yeah,
Nice.
whatever
I've
people
been
want to
on
hear.
that.
Yeah, you absolutely have.
Awesome, man. Well, take care, and
You too.
let's catch up by phone sometime as well.
Sounds good.
Say all the things the public can't hear.
Yes, the off the record chat.
Off the record chat. All right, man. Well, great talking to you. And yeah, I'm just gonna hit end to make it easy for myself. No,